Last week, I talked about my family's backyard garden and how lovely it was, filled with beautiful flowers and vegetables that we would grow every summer. But I also mentioned that it was my chore to weed it and how I absolutely detested it. Not only was it a lot of work, but as you well know, it seemed like an exercise in utter futility. No matter how much I did it, the weeds would always grow back. But I remember noticing once a small patch of weed that produced tiny purple flowers. Always looking for a way out of work, or at least reducing it, but also because I thought these tiny flowers were rather pretty, I asked my mother if I could leave them. Well, of course, she said no, and when I asked why, she explained that the weeds spread quickly and their roots crowd out those of the good plants, robbing them of water and nutrients they need, which could kill them. Sometimes we wonder why good people seem to suffer while bad people seem to thrive. We ask, why does God tolerate evildoers? Why doesn't he just weed them out? Well, apparently these are questions that people have been asking for generations, which could explain the purpose of the parable we just heard in today's gospel. Maybe God hates weeding as much as little Michael did. Or perhaps the Creator sees a beauty in these human weeds that we can't. An untapped potential, perhaps. A purpose yet to be served. Maybe they're left in the garden of this world to serve as a challenge to the wheat of humanity, to exercise goodness in such a way that leads them to rethink their way of life. For all we know, bad people suffer just as much as good people. Perhaps they're just better at hiding their suffering. Perhaps it's this unknown suffering that made them bad in the first place. A theme explored in the novel and hit musical Wicked, one of my favorite Broadway productions. Little Michael thought, why not let the weeds with the pretty purple flowers grow? Maybe they might make the garden even prettier. If not, I can always pull them up later. Could God's way of thinking be something along those lines? Wisdom today tells us of a God who has mastery over all things, yet is lenient to all, who judges with clemency, whose power is the source of justice, but who shows his power when its perfection is disbelieved. Now, isn't that an interesting thought? Can't we content ourselves with this? Can't we accept that God's mercy isn't just for those we judge to be deserving of it? After all, aren't we grateful when God shows us his mercy? Why then would we demand that he withhold it from others? For that matter, how can we justify withholding our own? Our psalm today rejoices in a God of compassion, a God who is merciful, kind, and forgiving. If this indeed is God's way, shouldn't we who claim to be his children make it our own? If Jesus could forgive his executioners, even as they pounded the nails into his hands and feet, and this is the Christ we are about to consume in this Holy Communion, can't we at least try to do the same? If Jesus saw something in those considered the weeds of the society of his day and reached out to them, if he could be compassionate towards them and refuse to label and condemn them, and in so doing, win many of them over to a new way of living, shouldn't we who call ourselves his followers constantly strive to do the same? St. Paul reminds us that the Spirit strengthens us in our weakness. So it's something we can do if we really want to. To do otherwise is to make ourselves weeds instead of the pretty little flowers we like to think we are. And if that's our choice, so be it. But then let's not be surprised if at the great harvest we find ourselves being pulled up and burned with the weeds instead of gathered with the wheat. God bless you.